All right, guys, so we're going to take a couple questions before we get into it, kind of warm it up a little bit. Do any of y'all have questions for Ian or myself?
Yes, I would like to hear from both of you.
Okay.
What mindset shifts do teachers need to make before becoming business owners?
That's a really good one. I'll say Ian will probably be able to speak to that best because he actually is the one that had to make the mindset shift as a teacher. But just, I'll say my little opinion too. The mindset shift is basically going from being a super employee, because teachers have to do so many different roles all in their one position. So it's like going from being a super employee to figuring out how to do things for themselves. Like they're used to serving everybody around them all the time and making sure everybody else is good, that a lot of times they do tend to forget about themselves. But like, what's your opinion on that, Ian?
Every day I find a new mindset shift that educators need to make in order to become, an entrepreneur. Every day it's like a different one. I'm like, oh man. And I've had to break a lot of these shackles off my mind myself. And I want to start by saying this. It's not an overnight process. I even had a business, but it took me 6 years of driving Uber to actually access the business systems that I had. But the main thing I'll say is it's a saying that comes from the Bible. Myron Golden uses it a lot. Be, do, have. You have to become something, then you have to do something, overcome some adversity, and then you'll have what you're looking for. So as far as like the main one, it's one of my favorite ones, the hardest one to swallow is stop working for money. We've been taught to work for money. We've been taught that time is money. That's a very expensive lie that we all accept. Time is not equal to money, because I can always make more money. In fact, the government sometimes just prints money out of nowhere. So I believe if you can figure out how to stop working for money, but not only stop working for money because you need money, money's important, but start to work only to have capital to fund your assets. Start to have an asset mentality to where, okay, I know I can work hard at something that might not produce for me today, but I'm laying a foundation of something that's going to pay me tomorrow. We had that same mentality when we went into college. We never questioned that. We went 4 years without making anything. Actually, we were paying a lot of money. Take that same approach, that same mindset towards something of your own, and when it's not working for you, it'll be working on you, and it'll eventually work for you.
Awesome. That was a really good question. Did you have any more?
I do.
Okay.
Unfortunately, this one is for you.
Okay.
So it's like a 2-in-1 question. The first thing is, was leaving education a difficult decision? Yes or why not? Yes or no, and why or why not? Also, what skills from teaching have helped you the most as an entrepreneur?
Awesome. What I would suggest is first is go back to my series. I had a 19-day series of me leaving out of education. It's on my Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, on all my platforms, and just follow along. I kind of talk about, how difficult it was. It wasn't easy. I found out 4 years before I knew I didn't want to have a job forever. I might have found that out maybe 3, 4, 5 years into teaching. And then I knew I wasn't going to keep that job. I found that out at least 4 years before I left. And then even as I was leaving, I was trained to have a job, that having a job is normal, that you have to have a job because that's what men do, they have a job. Well, if that's what men do, why did my dad had a job for like 16 years, and I think he's a man, he's a man. I respect that man. But it was ingrained into me that that's what we do. We have jobs, we show up for the kids. I love the relationships I built with the kids. Like, that was awesome. But I had to realize I'm not putting the mission to the side, I'm multiplying the mission that I'm on. I had to realize, where do my beliefs really lie? Do they belie, is the job my source, or is my God my source? I had to realize, just break a lot of those things off my mind. And a book that really helped me with that was a book called Weapons of Mass Instruction. If some beliefs don't change in your educator after you read that, I don't know what to tell you. Another thing was, you said, what was the second part of that question?
What skills from teaching have helped you become an entrepreneur?
So what I basically did was I took my teaching, what I do as a teacher, and I just took it into my business. What I did as a teacher was I would partner with teachers that were good at a lot of things. I was never one to sit down and make great worksheets. I partnered with a teacher that did that. I was always an encourager to my students and to other educators. I took that into my entrepreneurship. Everything that I did as a teacher, I used that in my business. I might not be teaching math formulas, but my formula for success is a math formula. It's the right work plus the right vehicle plus the right mindset to the power of time. That equals success. So I'm still even using math in that regard. Have you seen any, was it difficult from what you saw me leaving teaching?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it was difficult. It was one of those things where it was like a 2-year process where we talked about it a little bit. And even like at first the idea was maybe this is not the job for you. You know, we need to be able to support our family. Unfortunately, when men are in education, I hope your wife is a doctor or a lawyer or sales or something.
My bills were 6+K, 7K. My income from teaching was 4K, 5 on a good month.
Yeah. So there was always a gap. The gap was ever present. And we had to look to close the gap in any way possible. So the first idea, of course, was, all right, maybe you need to go get another job. And we looked into that, but it was like, as people that have went into entrepreneurship, it's difficult to commit to another job once you've already touched being an entrepreneur and having the freedom of that in some way, shape, or form. So I saw him struggle back and forth. He was like thinking like, oh, you know, this person is, well, what about this and what about that? And how am I going to do this? And, well, you know, maybe I should just stay one more year. Am I making a bad decision? Is this stupid? And the reality is nobody is going to think that it's a good idea. Sometimes God puts something on your heart and other people are not tied to that same mission. So they're not going to get into submission of your mission because they are not assigned to that. But you have to still be true to yourself. And that's what he did. He got the call. He recognized, okay, God is pulling me out of teaching, so I'm going to have to go with that. But what happens when everybody comes against you and persecutes you in that moment when you're having to make that decision? Are you going to be obedient to what your actual calling is? Or are you going to sit back and just say, let me please everybody around me and just hang around for another year? That's the decision he had to make, and it was difficult for sure.
And honestly, most of the persecution came from me. It was internal persecution. Survivor's remorse, I like to call it.
Last question for parents.
Okay.
So you have touched entrepreneurship in a plethora of different areas, right? Mm-hmm. So what is one thing that keeps you motivated during slow seasons?
What keeps me motivated during slow seasons? And that was a really good question because that's what a lot of people get caught up in. We get so used to, you know, do a little work, get a paycheck. Do a little work, get a paycheck. Take a week off because we have some vacation time, still get a paycheck. When you're an entrepreneur, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. You don't just get a check. You actually have to sometimes wait, but I look to my vision. I keep my vision in front of me. I keep my dreams in front of me. I keep those words going, and I fill myself with good at all times. I'm reading as much as possible. It's becoming harder now that I'm a mother of 4. I'm not even going to lie, but I still make sure I read the Bible, and I'm reading a book, even if it's 3 times a week and I want to do it daily, I'm doing it still. So just making sure I'm putting good in me and keeping around positive people that have gone where I want to go. That is so important. Association is one of the most important things that have kept me on track because the people around me, if they're employees and I'm an entrepreneur and they're going to keep wanting to call me into what they're doing. If I have a hard moment and I talk to an employee-minded person about it, they're going to be like, you might want to get a job. Maybe you could do this. Maybe they're going to keep trying to change my mind. So when I talk to people, I try to talk to people that actually understand entrepreneurship. But I do have tough moments. Yes. Even it's been years of being an entrepreneur, and I still have tough moments because, you start to wonder, like, is it coming? When? Am I going to be ready for it? Am I enough? I still get those thoughts, and those are natural. But, I mean, as long as I stay around the right people and put the right things in, that's what has guided me and keeping my vision in front of me as well. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll
Real
go
quick, did you have a
into...
I remember a few years ago, Ian would drive Uber and Lyft and things like that for a certain reason, and then now there's like a different reason for that if it ever came to that point. Can you share a little bit about that mindset shift and how if you're driving for money, this is where the money is going versus back then?
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. It's like there's a cash flow of the wealthy, and then there's a cash flow cycle of the wealthy, and a cash flow cycle of people that stay that are used by the system. I hope they came out right. But I have had to get back out there and drive some more. I have, I stepped away from Uber for a year and a half. I'm like, oh, dang, I need to go back out there and do that. But it wasn't to drive just to sustain me and pay my bills. I was driving for money to build capital to fund my assets. I wasn't trading my time for money. I was now using my time as a tool to gain leverage, to gain more capital. Because the money that I was able to get from that, I was able to use for ads. I was able to use to fund my my employees. I was able to multiply that money as opposed to just using it towards bills just to survive.
Yeah, I agree with him on that. Like, I think one of the coolest things has been to bring money in and look to use the money to fund our assets rather than to fund just life. And some months, I'm going to be real with you, some months it has looked like we're going to have to pay that late because we got to pay for this ad to keep running. We're going to have to wait on that and, delayed gratification and whatnot because we want to make sure we're funding something that's actually going to grow exponentially rather than just funding something that's just going to lie flat, I guess.
You got to fund your income producing assets before you fund your value decreasing liabilities. And it just comes down to, hey, being intact with your why. What is this money for? Do some research on where money came from. You'll be surprised.